Hey, this is Cesar Contreras, and you're listening to the Encouragers Podcast.
Hey, this is Tiave Matagi, and you're listening to the Encouragers podcast.
See you rocking the Bears, huh?
Yep,
Did they win yesterday?
they did. It is Victory Monday today. Thus, I'm adorning my Bears outfit. We got the Bears cap. Victory Monday. Oh yes, we got him. Tiave, thank you,
Hey,
brother.
What's up?
what's going on,
Cesar,
everybody?
how are you, brother?
I'm good. Hey, great
Happy Victory
surprise.
Monday.
Look at all these good looking people.
How the game's still going on in Monday Night Football. None of you guys are 49ers fans. I can take it.
I cheer for them when there's no one else to cheer for.
Right on. Well, happy
I,
Victory
I see
Monday.
I see you're not one.
Yeah.
You're not repping anybody tonight.
No. Just the Bears.
Go Bears.
Man, it was a funny game yesterday because we scored 24 points and not one single touchdown from our offensive team.
I read that today.
It's the
Yeah.
Bears of Rex Grossman back, back. We're back in the 2005, 2006 era. Man. What are you guys' NFL teams? Tiabe, what's your NFL team?
So for the longest time, I used to follow the Patriots, actually.
Oh,
When Satema got signed out of BYU,
oh,
uh,
that's right. That's right.
yeah, that's when
You're
I
good
became
friends
a
with
Patriots
Emma,
fan.
right?
What's that?
Aren't you good friends with him? With that
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah, we grew up. My older brother grew up with Satema. I grew up with Walter. I mean, we were all pretty close here in Utah.
Oh, dang. Cesar, what about you? What's your team? You have a team?
I'm
I
more of
was
a football guy.
Yep. I hear you. I hear you.
I cheer for the Saints. I cheered for the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Um, I don't know.
Right on.
Not the Chiefs.
Oh, don't say that. The number one Chiefs fan is right here.
The Taylor Swift Chiefs. And
This no Tech. This is Tech. Guys, everyone say hi to Tech. This is Tech.
What's up,
what's up,
guys?
Tech?
Say
What's
what's
going
up,
on,
brother?
brother?
What up?
He is the number one Chiefs fan. And we always
My
tease
bad.
him.
My apologies. My
Oh, you
apologies.
good? You good?
Oh,
As long as we all rep the Y and none of us here are Utards. I mean, we don't do that here.
right. Yep. No, I think we're
No,
all BYU fans here.
Just messing.
I definitely grew up bleeding blue, so
Dude, what happened this past weekend with them? They barely etched out a win.
Yeah, but they were a 20-point underdog, bro.
Yeah.
So
Jeez.
no,
Yeah.
rivalries are crazy. Rivalries are crazy. In Utah Valley, you got the Provo Tippview rivalry,
Yeah. Yeah.
and 2 weeks ago was a rivalry game, and they actually canceled it because a
yep.
bunch of Tippview folks were threatening the head coach and his family, bro, like on social media,
Like for real, for
like
real.
like death threats.
Like we know where
Jeez.
you live, kind of stuff.
And
Wow.
the rivalry lives strong.
Jeez. That's amazing. I never knew that was like that over there.
Yeah.
Dang. That's wild, man.
Yeah, I heard about that. Was it like a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So the head coach who graduated with him, Kurt Chambers, he played pro with the Bills, I believe. He
Mm,
was a offensive line guy, big dude, good guy.
jeez.
So you guys are from Utah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or about?
So I'm in Linden, just between Pleasant Grove and Orem.
I'm in Provo, about 5 minutes from the stadium.
Oh, you guys down south.
We're in the bubble, bro. In the bubble.
I,
We're in
I'm
Happy Valley.
I'm up north in Ogden.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
nice.
Oh, do you got like wear a bulletproof vest just to walk out your door up in Ogden. So they say. So they say.
That's hilarious. Well, thanks guys for coming on tonight. We previously recorded a podcast before but something happened to the record. I don't know if it was me or my computer or something, but I couldn't find the recording. So we're here doing it again. So
It was the warm up, bro. It was the warm up.
there you go. So we're here with Tiave Matagi and Cesar Contreras. And we're gonna be talking about some health stuff, man. Which well, all these things that we're doing as entrepreneurs and all the information that we're trying to get, we can't do much if our health is, out of sync or out of whack. So we love to share some information on health. And we have these two gentlemen here joining us today, and we hope to shed some light on some great information that you guys can all go and research and take control or take back control of your health. So that's the main purpose of our podcast tonight. And we hope you enjoy and hope you find the information that we share tonight valuable for you guys. So again, we have Cesar Contreras and Tiave Matagi here with us from Utah. And man, I guess the way we found out about you, Cesar, is through social media. One of your TikTok videos went super viral. And
Yeah.
and can you talk about that? About your journey and what your journey is and your mission is now?
Yeah. So TikTok was something that I never thought I'd ever do. In fact, I remember telling my kids they were forbidden to be on TikTok because you heard of all the crazy stuff that was happening on TikTok, whatever. And my family and I had just moved back from the Big Island back to Utah to take care of my dad, who had been in a 10-week coma, basically. And at the time, I just knew that something was off with my health. Went to the doctor and walked in, and noticed it's funny because literally walked in, he looked at me and he says, "You're diabetic," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, how do you know?" It's like, "No, I guarantee you you're diabetic." I go, "All right, cool. My name's Cesar. What's your name?" "I'm Dr. So-and-so. I bet my house that you're diabetic." I was like, "Okay, I got it. You think I'm diabetic? Thanks. How about we do the test? And if I am, we'll deal with it." So I come back the next day, do the lab work, set up the appointment for the following week. And my glucose was at 92. My A1C was at 5.5. Cholesterol normal, triglycerides normal, blood pressure normal. And the first thing that comes out of his mouth is, "Hey, we need to get you started on metformin." And I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, because you're pre-diabetic." I'm like, "You literally just told me that my glucose and my glucose and my A1C were both normal. How does that make me pre-diabetic?" Oh, sorry, it's because you're overweight." And I'm like, "Well, no kidding, Captain Obvious. I mean, I know I need to lose weight. I've been trying for a while and it's not working. So I'll pass, thanks." In my previous life, I've been selling insurance on and off for 20 years. And I've asked hundreds, if not thousands of people about what medications they take. And the one thing that I saw in common is if they were on metformin, they were also on lisinopril, and they were also on, some kind of statin. Metformin seems to be kind of like the gateway pharmaceutical drug. And then the other thing that scared me about metformin was like 6, 7 years ago, my mom had gone to the hospital and she had some type of sepsis and they were trying to find the infection. And they did CAT scans and MRIs on every organ. And I'll never forget, they looked over her kidneys and the doctor asked her, "Hey, are you on metformin?" And she's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Yeah, I could tell because your kidneys are basically 50% shot right now."
Yeesh.
Which is one of the side effects of metformin, by the way. So, when the doctor tried to push it on me, I was like, red flag, huge red flag. No way, I'm not doing it. What happened from there was I got home and I started looking over all my lab stuff and found out that my testosterone was really low. It was at 170, which is about the same of an 80-year-old man, and I'm not 80 years old. And then on the last page, he had actually tested my fasting insulin, and I had no idea what that meant, but it was 3 times the normal amount. And so I was curious as to why he didn't bring up my fasting insulin if it was so high. So I started researching about fasting insulin or insulin, and high insulin or elevated insulin. And that's the first time that I heard insulin resistance. And I just kind of dove in the deep end of the pool because as I saw the symptoms of insulin resistance, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been dealing with this for the last 5, 10, 15 years. And my doctors have never said anything about insulin resistance. You know, the sleep apnea or the insomnia, the depression, the low testosterone, the skin tags, the discoloration around your neck and armpits, the constant cravings, the getting tired after you eat, the gradual weight gain, the difficulty losing weight. All those things are signs of insulin resistance, and nobody had ever told me. And so, fast forward, a friend of mine reached out. He said, "Hey, I want to try this protocol." I started using the protocol, and I started seeing some great results, which led to me just sharing my story on TikTok. So I've been sharing my story on TikTok now for about May of 2022, so just about 2.5 years. And I shared that very same story that I just shared with you guys, and it got like 3 million views. And I was like, holy smokes, there's ears that want to hear this story. It struck a nerve with people. And I just started learning more and more about insulin resistance, started sharing everything that I've been learning about it with people. Did some lab stuff with Dr. Bickman, who wrote the book Why We Get Sick. Did 2 studies with his team. So I learned a lot. And just in the last 30, 45 days, we've had over 10 million views on a few of our videos that we've put out. And it's been wild. Just the demand for people, they're like just hungry for information about insulin resistance, because people are waking up and people are tired of feeling like they know something's off with their health, and the only solution that their doctor has is more medication. And people get tired of it. So that's a long answer to your question, bro. But I mean, it's been really cool to see how people are just have that real sincere desire to learn, and on a platform like TikTok, where they can hear real life people's experiences and find other alternative methods to dealing with those symptoms that they've been dealing with for a long time that nobody's really explained to them, has been really cool.
That's wild. Thank you, Cesar, for sharing that. For those of us that aren't aware of what insulin resistance is, can you just basically break it down in layman terms? What is insulin resistance?
Insulin resistance is just a condition where your body stops responding to insulin. Insulin resistance is triggered by a few things. Typically, or usually, it's toxins in the environment can trigger insulin resistance. Stress or lack of sleep will cause insulin resistance. And then the third big category is our food, diet. And so every time that we eat, food turns into sugar, and we have that spike in sugar. Well, without insulin, we would literally go into a diabetic coma. So insulin actually is there to help us bring the sugars back down. But our sugar goes up and down in about 2 to 3 hours. Insulin will go up and down 4 to 6 hours on a normal human being, normal person. But on someone who's insulin resistant, it'll take 8, 10, 12 hours to come back down. And so what happens is every time we eat, we spike our sugar, we spike our insulin, sugar goes down, and then insulin starts to come down. But then we eat, and then we eat, and then we eat, and then we eat, and insulin is just running high all day long. So imagine your car redlining all day. Your engine over time will just give out. Well, our cells get tired. They start to resist the insulin. And our body, to control the sugar, has to produce more and more and more and more insulin to do the job that little insulin is supposed to do, to bring your sugar back down. And over time, your cells just stop responding. And when your cells stop responding to insulin, insulin's main job is to open up the cell to use that glucose as energy. But if that cell is not using that energy, then that energy or that sugar is getting stored everywhere else, rather than where it's supposed to be used for energy. So we start putting on fat. We start storing glucose in our muscle tissue. We start storing glucose in our joints. We start storing glucose in our skin. We start storing glucose as fat around our vital organs. And before you know it, there's so much sugar everywhere that that's where it turns into type 2 diabetes. And now not even the insulin that our pancreas produces can keep that glucose level low. So then you go to your doctor and their solution is more insulin and more insulin and more insulin and more insulin, which that solution ends up causing more of the root problem, which is more insulin resistance.
Man.
And this
wild.
is affecting, by the way, I'm Jake. Nice
Hey,
to
Jake,
nice
what's
to
up, bro?
What's up, Jake?
meet you, Cesar.
And we got
It's
Tiave here.
affecting. Oh, we got Tiave. I think Paul's joining us as well. But so it's interesting because I think maybe some of our younger listeners would say, "Hey, is this even apply to me?" And in the middle of the first year of COVID, 40% of I believe it's 40% age 21 to your mid 40s, 40% have insulin resistance. So this is affecting us younger and younger, probably for a myriad of reasons. I would imagine it got worse over COVID because people were less active, which we were able to spike our insulin more without activity. Because maybe you can talk about that. So like, let's say someone, maybe they don't have the money to go get some lab work, but they like these symptoms you're talking about resonate. What is the easiest, most basic, give people 3 things they can do that don't cost a lot of money, that are, it's a simple start to getting your health back and becoming more insulin resistant?
Absolutely, Jake. So one thing that I do want to address about what you said is, 9 out of 10 people in the United States are metabolically unhealthy, meaning they have at least 2 or more markers that's impacting their metabolic health.
Hey.
Basically, you're saying 9 out of 10 people are insulin resistant. I mean, I not to put all of you on the spot, but I bet if I went through some of those symptoms, all of us would have at least 2 or more, right? 1 out of 3 are pre-diabetic. And diabetes as a whole, type 2 diabetes is just skyrocketed over the last 20, 30 years because of our food, number one. So 3 things, Paul, or Jake, that people can do right now that doesn't cost any money, that will help them control their insulin resistance. Number 1 is intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. Again, why? Because if we're on this roller coaster, the sugar roller coaster all day, where we eat, sugar goes up, insulin goes up, sugar comes down, and then we're doing this all day. What we're wanting to do is actually give your body a window of time where it no longer has insulin in the bloodstream. And typically, if you can go without eating for 16 hours, you're going to spend 4 to 6 hours in that window of time without any insulin. And your cells are basically saying, oh my gosh, I can breathe, I can rest, I can relax for a moment, I can regenerate, I can, get ready for that next wave of sugar, if you will, and actually know what to do with it. The problem for most people is intermittent fasting is a challenge because they're like, oh my gosh, the food noise is such a real thing. Like, I gotta eat, I'm hungry. Oh my gosh, it's time to eat, I gotta eat. Like we're constantly thinking about food. Or we get hangry, or we get the shakes, or whatever, right? So intermittent fasting, people are very, very intimidated by intermittent fasting. But intermittent fasting, there's so many benefits to intermittent fasting, so many benefits. So that's one thing that people can do right now that will help them start to become more insulin sensitive, or at least give their body time to heal so that your cells can actually respond to the insulin. Something else
Before
you can
go to before you go to 2 and 3, talk a little bit about if someone has the resolve, if they can ignore the hangry, and they decide to push the intermittent past just intermittent, they push beyond for an extended water fast, let's just say. And you're not, when we say water fast, you're just drinking water, you're avoiding food, right? Talk a little bit about what that could do before we go to 2 and 3.
Well, I mean, extended fasting there's so many healing properties to extended fasting. Your body, goes into what's called autophagy, where your cells actually regenerate and heal. You produce more growth hormone. You reset your hormones. You can actually heal your gut microbiome. Your body.
Ketone production.
What's that?
Ketone production too.
Ketone production. Your body turns to stored fat for energy, and you can become fat adapted or more metabolically flexible, meaning that your body will start to get used to looking for that excess or that stored fat for energy versus asking for more glucose, which is really what we want. So yeah, so I, I'm not a doctor and this is not medical advice, but I tell people all the time, if you can do a 16-hour fast 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and then do one 24-hour fast a week, and then once a quarter do a 72-hour fast. I mean, my gosh, you'll feel so much better. Inflammation goes away. I mean, you have way more energy, more focus. In fact, a book that I recommend that everybody should read is Fast Like a Girl. I know it's Fast Like a Girl, but basically it's a Bible on fasting. It's amazing, by Dr. Mindy Pelz. Because intermittent fasting is different for women than it is for men, because of their menstrual cycle, by the way. So, but there's so many benefits to intermittent fasting when it comes to insulin sensitivity. And once your body starts to become insulin sensitive, you start knocking down all the dominoes that are associated with insulin resistance, and the weight starts to come off. Which, by the way, one of the big misconceptions I believe is out there about intermittent fasting is that people intermittent fast to lose weight. You're not really going into a calorie deficit per se, because if you're used to doing, let's say for easy math, 3,000 calories a day, 1,000 for breakfast, 1,000 for lunch, 1,000 for dinner. We're not telling people to just do 2,000 calories a day, do 1,500, but give yourself the extra 4 hours without eating. And that will have better benefits than a calorie deficit for weight loss, because your body will actually start to heal. And as it naturally looks for that stored fat, as you lose the inches, you lose the weight. So
That's wild. That's funny that you mentioned Dr. Mindy Pelz. I actually have one of her audio clips here that I wanted to play for our audience. I was just, she was on all over all these different podcasts. I was doing some research, and this audio right here kind of plays into the intermittent fast. She talks a little bit about it here. Here it is right here.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day was a ad slogan for cornflakes back in the 70s. Here we are in 2024, and people are still perpetuating that ad slogan. I would like to meet a human that has eaten 6 meals a day and found that that was a metabolism stimulator. People like Walter Longo, people like Sachin Panda, big fasting researchers, what they figured out was if we compress our eating into a certain time period like our ancestors did, the longer you go in the fasting window, you're turning on these different healing mechanisms. Actually, time-restricted eating is the most important thing that we can be doing when it comes to food. When people learn how to do a fasting lifestyle, their hunger goes away. Because without food, you go into this ketogenic energy system. One of the biggest consequences in the millions of people we've seen build these fasting lifestyles is they go, I'm not hungry anymore. Fasting is using your own fat to make this byproduct called a ketone. So you're losing weight in the process of making the ketone. And then the ketone goes up into the brain and actually shuts off the hunger hormone. And now you're not hungry. Breakfast is the most.
That's wild.
very true.
Very.
Tiave, what are your thoughts on that comment that Dr. Mindy Pelz was just sharing with us right here, Tiave?
Oh, so I think that there's a lot in the health and fitness culture that talks about ketones. And one of the big things that, and I mentioned this earlier, is the production of ketones and how important that is. And there's a huge phase going on right now that says you should drink your ketones, right? Except it's producing, it's giving your body artificial ketones, which then suppresses the body's ability to make them naturally, right? And all the talk about ketones becomes critically important because your brain thrives off of ketones as an energy source. Like they've actually done scientific experiments where they tested tissue with glucose in one tray and ketones in another tray, and they went for the ketones every single time. Right? And that's crazy to think about, that we have been told for decades that we need to have this kind of diet that suppresses ketone production in order to enhance our glucose intake so that our metabolism speeds up, but it's actually shutting down our metabolism and destroying our abilities to be healthy by consuming these diets.
Jeez, that's wild.
Yeah.
Cesar, were we going to say, Cesar, do you have something to add to that?
No, intermittent fasting is amazing. And if you can get through the mental battle of, the food addiction or the carb addiction that we all suffer from. It's actually like amazing. You feel 1,000 times better. You just do. You realize how addicted to food you are, and it's amazing when you can break from that.
I like what
So
you said.
in your intermittent fasting, do you eat a certain meals? Do you have a certain diet foods that you eat between 12 and 8?
So that would be the second thing that I would teach people, is understanding what foods cause your sugar to spike versus foods that don't cause such a high spike, right? So, there's three major macronutrients. You got your fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And when you look at carbohydrates, you've got your simple, refined, processed carbohydrates, and then you've got your complex carbohydrates. So you have to understand which macronutrients are impacting your sugar the most. So we teach people, hey, it matters the order in which you eat your food. So if you have a plate of food and you've got protein, healthy fats, and carbs on that plate, it's amazing what happens when you eat the healthy fats first, then the proteins, then the carbs. It actually causes close to a 50% reduction in the glucose spike just by changing the order in which you eat your food.
That's wild.
But we're so accustomed to eating the carbs first, right? So you go to a restaurant and they're serving you the chips and salsa, they're serving you the bread, the breadsticks, they're serving you the all the refined carbs first because they don't fill you up. But they're spiking your sugar through the roof to keep you hungry because that causes you to eat more. But if you were to eat the protein, healthy fats, and then the carbs, you'll see a huge difference. So that'd be the second thing, Jake, that I would tell people. And, that would answer your question, is to not necessarily stick to a strict diet, but understanding how different foods impact your sugar. In fact, I when I did my first study with Bigman's team, they put me on a continuous glucose monitor. I think everybody should wear a CGM at least for 30 days, so they get an idea of how different foods impact their sugar. It's wild. It's wild. I mean, it'd blow your mind just to see how your sugar is going up and down all day based on stress, based on, what foods you eat, based on so many different factors throughout the day. It's very enlightening and eye-opening. And if people understood that, people would be making better choices.
Absolutely. Yep. And going into your third, what would you suggest be the third thing?
So the third thing so we teach people strength training is really important, because the first cells to become insulin resistant, or the ones that become insulin resistant the easiest, are muscle cells. Okay. So if you can go and do strength conditioning and use those muscle cells, that muscle tissue, you have better chances of reversing that insulin resistance on that muscle or on that cell group, right? So, you're gonna see the benefits of burning that fat faster in that muscle, and you're just gonna feel much better. So that's what I would, the fourth thing that I would do. We can talk about it later, but is add fiber, and fiber is essential, because why most of these foods are causing our sugar to spike is because they've been stripped completely of fiber. I mean, if you look at like wheat today, most of our bread, our rice, most of our the foods that we eat have just been stripped of fiber. So, in the Latin community, especially in the Mexican community, you have a lot of people that, these old Capuna that have been eating tortillas their entire life, rice and tortillas their entire life, had no problems. They weren't getting fat. And all of a sudden, the last 20 years, you eat rice and tortillas and people blown up. It's just not the same. Right. Same with the Polynesian culture, eating rice, same thing. All of a sudden, don't take my rice away from me. But the rice is now, the rice from today is very different from the rice from before. And it's causing that glucose to spike so high it's eliciting an insulin response that's causing that insulin resistance. It's just a snowball effect because of the food that we're putting into our body.
Man, that's wild. Yeah, it's a huge epidemic. I seen a statistic earlier when I was studying and researching about diabetes and insulin resistance. There is in the Lancet, there's Lancet.com, I think it is called. Oh, no, the Lancet.com. It's a medical journal, I believe. But they were saying that global diabetes cases are right now, it's going to soar from like 520 million in 2023 to 1.3 billion by 2050. So it's a huge problem. One of you that's listening to this right now has a problem with it.
Check this out. Dr. Bickman, his introduction, his first paragraph, let me read this to you. He says, "We are sick worldwide. We are struggling with diseases that were once very rare. And in many cases, we're losing the fight. Each year, roughly 10 million people die from cancer, and almost 20 million people die from heart disease around the world. Another 50 million people globally have Alzheimer's disease, and almost 500 million of us have diabetes. While diseases like these are becoming increasingly common, other less lethal conditions are also on the rise. Roughly 40% of adults worldwide are considered overweight or obese. Furthermore, almost half of men over 45 have lower than optimal testosterone levels, and almost 10% of women experience menstrual irregularities or infertility. Though they seem unrelated, all of these disorders and more do have one thing in common. To varying degrees, insulin resistance is causing the problem or making it worse."
Sheesh.
And people don't know about it. One of my favorite questions to ask people when they find me on TikTok or when I'm out in the streets is like, well, what is it? What are all these symptoms? Like, I have this symptom and I have this symptom. I have high blood pressure. I have high cholesterol. I have high triglycerides. I have, depression. I have this. I have that. And I'll ask them, hey, when was the last time your doctor talked to you about insulin resistance? What do you think they say? When was the last time your doctor talked to each of you about insulin resistance? Never.
Never
They're not
heard of
talking
it
about
till
it.
you.
Yeah, they're not talking about it. So my mission, to answer your first question at the very beginning, is to help people understand what insulin resistance is, so they never have to hear the words you're pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic. Because if you deal with it 10, 15 years before, you'll never hear those words, which should piss a lot of people off. Because
Right.
if you walk into the doctor tomorrow and say, oh, by the way, you're now pre-diabetic, your doctor could have told you 10, 15 years ago about what insulin resistance was to help you prevent it. And they never did, because there's no medication to help you with your insulin resistance.
Sheesh.
There you go. That's what pisses me off. I'm out. I'm out to
Right, man.
help people, Ben.
We need to get like a insulin resistant app for the Polynesian community and for all those affected. Anybody can join, right? It'll be agnostic, but it'll have, of course, its focus, but for people to come in and maybe they can have like tips of the day or whatever, and remind them of the things that they can be doing. Because really, like you said, start with reducing the amount of hours that you eat, and you reduce it to 8 or 6. What was it that you reduced it to?
So the easiest way to start is 16 hours a day where you don't eat, and then your eating window is 8 hours.
Okay.
But a lot of people misinterpret eating window to, I can eat as many times as I want in 8 hours. No, you eat once to break your fast, and then you eat once to start your fast. So you're basically eating twice. Because again, you're trying to limit the number of times you spike your sugar throughout the day. That's the whole point. The less spikes, the less insulin you have.
And then the next thing was weight train, right? That's another huge way to help avoid or resist insulin's resistance, because it's going to recruit all of those sugars out of your muscles. And a myriad other of amazing benefits, just working out, keeping your heart healthy, all those things. But that's another one. If you have access to weight training, huge way to stave off any of these types of symptoms or diseases.
Correct. Yeah, and then just start to understand how different macronutrients impact your sugar. And if you can change the order in which you eat your food, you'll notice a big difference. Even if you're gonna have a plate of rice and a protein and some vegetables, great. Have your rice last, and then if you want to go over the top, go and walk for 10 minutes after you eat. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That alone will keep your glucose basically in check. Right.
Doesn't have to be long, right? 5-10 minutes,
No,
right? Is
no,
enough
five,
to.
yeah, 5, 10 minutes. I tell people go up and down your stairs 3 times after you eat, and you're good. Or go do 10 squats, whatever. Engage those leg muscles because that's your largest muscle group,
Right.
and burn off that sugar, and just
Yeah.
the faster you can have your sugar come back down, the faster insulin will leave the bloodstream.
An interesting study I found was with both rice and potatoes. I don't know, you probably have heard this, but if the glycemic load is reduced drastically when you cool it off first after the initial cooking, for whatever reason, and I don't think science has figured out why this is exactly the case. But even if you reheat it again, it actually will adjust a little bit, but you'll get the majority of the benefits by allowing it to cool first all the way, and then eating it. So I found that if you have a hard time, if there's anybody listening or anybody here that I can't give up my rice, at least that's a little bit way. Eat your protein first, then eat your fats, then eat your carbs last, but cool them off first, and it'll be a little bit less impactful to your sugar levels.
Yeah, similar studies actually. Just about with bread too.
Yep.
You can reduce the glycemic impact by cooling your bread in the fridge or even freezing it and then letting it thaw after.
So
And
fascinating.
Dr. Bigman talks about that in his book, by the way. So
yeah,
everybody should read this book. You'll read it, you'll be so pissed off at our medical system. You're like, what in the world? It's just like,
we'll have a link to that book in the
awesome.
podcast description.
It's a great book.
Cesar was just holding up. It's called "Why We Get Sick."
Yeah, it's an amazing book.
Once you've like woken up to, like, our doctors are really just trying to go through the motions and take care of their families, and they're not your local community doctor. Back when we had little communities of 250 people, where people actually, there's been more studies on it's hard for our brain to show empathy and love for people above your tribe, right? Above 250 people. Not saying it's not possible, but we are in this rat race of make money, take care of our own families, and there's just a miss of information and of true empathy and how to take care of your fellow neighbor, right? It's hard to do with how much scaled up our country is. And so I don't think it's always necessarily a nefarious answer. It's just maybe it is in some ways because there's money in it, right? Because you can, where's the easy money for some of these companies? That's probably the first answer. And then some of the other answers below it would be, again, we all used to kind of live on, my big dream is to get all my friends living on a compound with me, and we have a podcast studio and some farmland, and we all kind of take care of each other and each other's families, but that becomes becomes doable in your mind. But just thinking, like, the reach of social media now can be so positive but could be so negative, and it makes sense why it is difficult to care for somebody across the world living in their own life that you really don't know how they got to that point in their life, because we haven't walked in their shoes. So I get the difficulties, but I love that you're using your platform to share the good message to get everybody healthy again.
So funny you say that, because look, doctors are great people, but if you look at who's funding all of the studies, and if you look at who's funding all of these hospitals and whatever, right? Just got to follow the money, number one. But we're sandwiched between big pharma and big food right now, and we're the ones taking the hit. And these doctors, bless their hearts, we've now partnered up with a lot of medical professionals. Straight up have said, they just follow an algorithm. You walk in, your lab work says X, you get prescribed Y, and that's it. They don't have the time, and
Right.
they've been put on handcuffs as to what they can and can't do based on the patient's insurance. And so they're not there to teach, they're not there to heal. They're there to prescribe and put a Band-Aid on the symptom. And most of us were just going to be okay with it. In fact, Gary Brecka, he went viral for saying something very controversial about, if you want to keep someone type 2 diabetic, have them follow the dietary guidelines on the American Diabetes Association website. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I heard
Go
that,
figure.
Right.
Go figure, right? I mean,
Right.
if you understand what that is saying, and if you understand what those dietary guidelines are having you do, it goes 100% against what's going to actually help that person put diabetes in remission or reverse type 2 diabetes, right?
Right.
There's another TED Talk. I'm trying to find it really fast. What's her name? Shoot. I'll have to send it to you. But it is an awesome TED Talk where she talks about insulin resistance. It's one of the first ones that we're just addicted to carbohydrates. You know, because food companies they're not there they're there to sell food, right? And they're there to keep us addicted to food, and it's 100% marketing, and you know, so it's just understanding how this food impacts our glucose levels and our insulin. And if you can understand that, you know, one of the things I tell people, if you can control your insulin, you can control your health.
Right. And I think it's important too for a lot of people, like, want to know, like, why do they crave carbs? Like, these companies are to make their profit margins, right, and take care of their families. They're biohacking an inherent design we have. I don't know if you have gone down that, or if there's anything you want to touch on there.
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, it's just food is addictive, and they're trying to make food as cheap as possible, and they're trying to make as much money as they can. And I mean, it's just a really, really, really deep rabbit hole that we're the ones getting played with, and that's why we're seeing. I mean, like, you played that clip of Mindy Pelz talking about breakfast. That was a marketing ploy for Kellogg's to sell more food, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they told us that fat was the enemy in the 70s instead of sugar, but we now know sugar is more addictive than freaking cocaine, you know, but everything has sugar. Everything has sugar, you know, and now you're seeing this crazy, not in type 2 diabetes, but things like fatty liver. And fatty liver is 100% caused by insulin resistance and by fructose and high fructose corn syrup. You're seeing fatty liver in kids because they're drinking all this soda that's pumped full of high fructose corn syrup, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And so, but it says sugar free, or it says fat free, or it says whatever it says on the label, and because we haven't been taught any better, we go buy it. But Mom, I love it. Mom, it's so good. Mom, this is my favorite one. Mom, you know what I mean? I mean, I have 4 kids, and it's hard to walk out of a supermarket without them telling me, "Hey, can we get this? Can we get this? Can we get this?" I mean, once I started learning about this, I mean, one of the worst things you could give your kids is these artificial juices that we think are full of vitamin C and vitamin this, and it's straight sugar.
Do you remember, like, the frozen concentrate, like the frozen grape?
Yep.
That was so good. It was probably giving me an early heart attack though, but that stuff was good.
Hey, but you know what? Back then, the ingredients were probably a lot more pure. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Well, there was every once in a while you'll see people put up memes about how the same product in the U.S., the same product in Europe or in Asia, and the ingredient list is totally different.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a lot healthier outside the U.S. for, I think, preservatives. There's literally so many things, like we probably don't have enough time, but one point I do want to make is like, if somebody's like, why do I crave carbs so much? I think so. Just going to inherent design, our bodies process it super easily into energy. We didn't have access to carbs 100 years ago, 200 years ago. We had very limited access to it, and it was probably used as a boost of energy to get something more, say, something that would fill us more like protein when we were doing our hunting, right? And so for a different purpose, and we had far less access to stuff like that. Like fruit was, there wasn't fruit farms the way we think they are, way we have them now. They might come upon them hunting the forest of a blueberry patch or something like that, right? So you're just not having the huge amount of carbs in amount of calories available to us 100 years ago. So our bodies, I don't think, have adjusted with time quite yet. Maybe eventually our bodies will adapt to learning it's wrong for us, but where our bodies stand in like because you picture in your mind, right? I don't want to tempt anybody here, but like there's these so I'll give you my temptation that I have here. It's this place called Cheese Smith, and they have these fries with pork belly on them, and man, there's like green onions on them, so like, and they're just like a little bit of Parmesan, a little bit, anyways, delicious, right? But I don't feel good after I eat it, and but the anticipation before is a bit wild. How much, especially if I've gone a long day, how much my brain will alter and go towards that, just because the fast energy. This is the part I think that our bodies haven't adapted to the time we're in quite yet, where it should start to realize it's bad for us. Our brain still hasn't adjusted to that, which I hope we do make that adaptation. But I do think, I of course believe in God and in great design. I think the design definitely served itself a great purpose for a long time. Just in this time of excess, we have to learn a different type of self-control, while our brains haven't figured out that this sugar and French fries aren't good for us.
Right. So a couple of things that I love, because like carbs aren't bad. Complex carbs aren't bad, but they're called complex carbs for a reason, because it takes a lot longer to break down. And so your body can actually do something with it, right? But you also have to understand that there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Like there is like essential amino acids and essential fatty acids, right? Our body needs fat and our body needs protein, but our body does not need carbohydrates.
Right.
There's
you
no
can
such
survive
thing.
without it.
Correct, right? But we get addicted to carbohydrates, especially refined and processed carbohydrates, because it's going to cause that spike in energy, and then we're going to have to crash. And then we've accustomed ourselves that whenever we have low energy, we go get the Snickers bar, because that's what Snickers is telling us to do, right? Or we go get the bagel in the break room, or we go get the donut, or we go get whatever it is, the protein bar, or not, or the
energy drink,
the energy, whatever, just to spike our sugar back up, and then we get on that roller coaster and off we go. And so with the intermittent fasting, if you can get through the first 2-3 days, and and we can talk about how we're helping people get through that in a little bit, but if you can get through that, man, there's nothing greater than knowing that you have way more energy, way more mental clarity, way more focus, and you're not eating. It feels awesome. I remember last summer, I did my first 5-day fast. And I'm telling you, day 3, day 4, and day 5, I did a full 2-hour workout, and I had more energy than if I had eaten the morning before. Now, after day 5, I was like, all right, it's time to eat, right? But I've never felt better in my life. Now, I'm not telling everybody here to go do a 5-day fast. Like, I worked up to it, right? But man, it was awesome. It was amazing. So
that's cool. These guys just finished up doing Jake had a challenge to our podcast group to do a water fast. And Jake, I don't know, how long did you fast for, Jake? Maybe I can't remember, but Jake and Tech did this water fast.
Yeah, Tech did 36 hours, right? Tech, and I did just short of 5 days.
Amazing.
I
I bet you felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the second
So
day
good.
for me that was the hardest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then
I found for myself, once you get past 36, it's easy.
yeah, I found after the second day it was easy.
Yeah, I felt
think,
I haven't felt that good in like since I can remember. I literally felt like it was almost like I was on drugs, man. It was like a free high. Not that
Yeah.
I'm like a proponent of drugs by any means, but it was like I felt so good. And it was it was the reduction. My blood pressure was down drastically, and it's still been down lower than what my baseline was. It's been lower than that, thankfully, since I did that first initial one. So I did a permanent correction to that, at least for now. And then all of my inflammation was gone out of my joints, and which is something I have issues with. And of course, going on ketones. About 5 years ago, I was on keto pretty strict for about a year. And I was in the best shape of my life. I was, it was hard. Don't get me wrong. It was very hard to be that strict and count everything. And I don't know if that lifestyle is like truly sustainable, what I did for a year, but at least I did it for a year. But something more feasible along those lines, I definitely want to get back to, because there is no doubt the clarity of mind that you get, you just are firing on all cylinders and feeling really good. It's hard to explain to everybody else, because things just meant how you're supposed to feel on doing those. And it's why a lot of I do think it's an old health law that a lot of churches encourage fasting. With a lot of different denominations out there, they encourage fasting. You even see it in a lot of the Asian religions. You see them a lot of different religions out there, and it's an old health law that trickled down from when they were pretty knowledgeable about some of these things, and then lost the knowledge but kept the tradition.
Yeah, they just kind of knew.
Cesar, you talked a little bit about like incorporating more fiber in your diet. What's a good plan or attack route to incorporate that? Because I know there's a correlation between having more fiber in your diet and being insulin resistance and healthier, right? Is that?
Yeah, so fiber has a lot of different properties. I mean, there's thousands of different types of fiber. Fiber comes from a lot of vegetables, fruits, plants. There's a good book called Fiber Field. Is that right, Tiave? Fiber Field.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that book. There's soluble fiber. There's insoluble fiber. So there's a lot of benefits to fiber. Fiber is not something that our body digests, but fiber is something that helps feed our gut microbiome. The right diverse fibers really help us with our digestive system. Most people, when they think of fiber, they think of psyllium husk and being able to go to the bathroom. That's kind of what people think about when they think about fiber. When you talk about fiber, they don't think about cholesterol, or they don't think about glucose levels or glucose management, or they talk about triglyceride management, or they talk about gut microbiome health, right? But different types of fibers really do help with all of that. So you can get your fibers from vegetables, from fruits. A lot of people also don't understand dietary fiber. A lot of these processed foods, if you read the nutrition label, will have dietary fiber, but that dietary fiber is really not doing much, because there's, if people don't understand the concept of net carbs, people should, because net carbs is your carbohydrates less of your dietary fiber, and then that's really the carb impact of that food. So fiber helps reduce the impact of carbohydrates, right? So you could implement having a very leafy green, or a very high vegetable, diet. I like to incorporate my fiber by using supplements. And I personally use a supplement that is a diverse blend of 9 different soluble and insoluble plant fibers. that serves a very specific purpose. Number one, it helps me control my glucose, which then helps keep my insulin levels low. It helps control my cholesterol. It helps control my blood pressure. It helps control my triglycerides, and it helps provide satiety while helping my gut microbiome. And it's simple to see if it's working or not, because you can take your lab before and you can take your lab after, and the only thing you change is added this fiber, and holy smokes, is making a huge difference, right? So that's one thing that I've incorporated into my lifestyle, because it's more convenient to supplement with this blend of fibers than it is to add 20 pounds of leafy greens to my diet every day, right? So
Right.
it was a no-brainer for me.
I wanted to. I know we talked about this earlier, but can you show Tiave? Do you mind showing your before picture, what you were doing, like how you, like your before and after picture? Like, you got to see this picture of Tiave.
Yeah.
We've all seen Cesar's before and after pictures, but man, whatever it's, I mean, it's huge. It's what went viral. Honestly, it's what got you guys for us to reach out. But look at this. Look at this. This is from adding fiber and a protocol to his diet, your regimen, daily life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
Actually, Cesar showed me this particular fiber thing and got me started on the protocol too. And I tell you what, it was one of those times that Cesar, is this another one of those things? Right? We've done them all. I think all of us can fairly say that we've probably tried just about everything we can think of. Right? But most of the other diets and fads and whatever else you try really don't address what needs to be addressed. They might assist with lifestyle changes, but that was crazy to me that in the first, I believe it was 30 days, I had lost my first 11 pounds. And I felt great. Like, I had done intermittent fasting before, and, I think, like Cesar said, we all tried it to lose weight. But I think a misconception that I had, that a lot of people have too, is we're told to intermittent fast to lose weight, but we don't really know why intermittent fasting is beneficial. And I think, there's a lot of this conversation that has explained in simple terms why fasting is so important.
Right. We used to live that way anyways, like the majority of humanity did. So all of our ancestors, what they pass on to us is thousands and thousands of years of that type of eating. Right. And here we are breaking tradition with our 8 meals a day that we have now, or whatever it is.
Those so-called experts, man.
Right. Well, it's, we can go back, trace the money, right? So fiber helped you use 11 pounds in the first months. Okay. Let's talk about, so fiber definitely helps, right? Because it makes you full, makes you more regular, keeps you insulin resistant. So if carbs are introduced, your body's going to effectively be less likely to use it as storing fat and going straight to energy, right? So let's talk about ways to cheat without cheating.
That's a good way to put it.
That's why I'm here. And you know what? And this
is how you cheat without cheating.
He's holding up a photo of himself, before and after photo right now, for those of you not watching the video portion.
So, and I'll give an example. Like, you get a really strong sugar craving, you feel it on, but you have a plan in place. And I'll give you something that helps with me is figs, right? And there's a couple of interesting health benefits. Figs also reduce your blood pressure. They have a special type of sugar that increases satiety, so you feel full. The issue is you can't just snack on the bag, but if you just have one or two, and it'll crush that craving for sugar, and then you just can move on with your day. So the cheat without cheating is like those little hacks that can help people stay on track versus have that urge take over and you end up crashing into Cheese Smith and getting the fries with pork rinds on them.
Drinking water drinking water makes a big difference, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, drinking half your body weight in ounces of water a day will help with cravings for sure. Help flush out a lot of stuff too. So, drinking water is a big deal. Again, eating in the right order is a huge hack, right? Walking 10, 15 minutes after you eat is a huge hack. But yeah, there's a lot of different things. And then, you know, supplementing with fiber will help for sure. One of the other hacks that I do is I drink a concentrated extract of yerba mate, which helps suppress my appetite, and it helps control my cravings, and it helps promote an increase in my body's ability to produce GLP-1 naturally. And GLP-1 is a hot topic right now because everybody's injecting it through different methods of semaglutides, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. Now there's some off-label ones, but there's a lot of potential risk factors associated with these medications right now. And
The way I equate that you're doing it like someone installing a muscle inside their muscle, or versus going to the gym to work out and do it, right? That's kind of like the difference between getting it through yerba mate and getting it through these like bioengineered, hacked, who knows what kind of damage we're doing to people's kidneys types of drugs.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
I've done some videos on that, and I've got a lot of people responding how they were on it and some of the ways that they were feeling, and they were glad to be off of it. I mean, I've had people tell me thyroid cancer, pancreatitis, gastroparesis, blindness, people that actually lost their weight, gained it all back. And it is, I mean, look, I get people are really desperate, and I really do. I really do. And I was there. I think a lot of us have been there. Like, what do I do? Where do I turn? But some of these drugs, I mean, they're just the risk is not worth the reward.
Right.
It's not good, and we're just scratching. We don't even know what's going to happen with all these people. It's going to be bad. So I use the natural, two natural supplements that help me with those two things because it's just more convenient than trying to. Look, I've done keto, Jake. It is hard to sustain long term, and I don't know if you have kids or not, but when your kids are wanting to have pizza, or when they want to go and grab a quick burger down at the corner, burger shop, whatever, and you're like, oh man, give me a bite, like. Oh, that smells so good. You know what I mean? Because we're so addicted to it. Look, I get it. There's people that are super disciplined. But for a lot of people, especially in the Latino Polynesian communities where everything is celebrated with food, I joke around and be like, hey, you're not going to go to Abuelita's house. You're not going to go to Auntie's house and turn her down when she offers you the plate. It's not going to happen. That's offensive in our cultures, right? So willpower fatigue is a real thing. Saying no to people is really hard in our cultures, and I know many have tried, and there is that small percentage that can make it work long term, and my hat's off to them because they have discipline that I don't have, and it's not a cop out for me, but it's like, hey, look, I care about relationships, and if my grandma's going to offer me the apple pie and ice cream, I'm going to take a bite because I don't want to make grandma feel bad. You know what I mean? Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. I hate that we even think that way, but the diet culture is so messed up. Like, I can't, like, I messed up, or I can't do this, or I can't do that, or it's such a mind altering. Yeah, right. Because you're fighting with yourself every single day. It's like, oh my gosh, I want that, but I can't, and you're justifying yourself, and you're finding reasons to why you can, and then But I told Tiave that I was gonna have sugar this week, and I told my wife that I was gonna eat a certain way, and but I want to, but I can't. But then I'm gonna lie to myself about it, and then, oh shoot, well, it's Thursday, I messed up. Well, if I mess up on Thursday, guess what happens Friday, Saturday, Sunday? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, it's free game. I'll start over on Monday. You know, I talk to people every single day that are just so tired of that, but they don't have an out because it's just the same old, same old. And so by addressing the insulin resistance side of it, at least you're tipping over all the dominoes that come from dealing with that root cause versus just focusing on the one domino, which is weight loss, right? Which you'll lose the weight, but because you haven't dealt with the root cause, you're going to gain it back. But if you deal with that root domino, boom, 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 you're going to knock that last one, which is weight loss, and you're actually going to have a much better shot at keeping it off for a longer period of time because you actually dealt with the thing that was keeping you from losing the weight in the first place.
Yeah, that's powerful. And it's like that with everything that we're learning. If you can understand the base root, the cause of what's going on, and address that issue first, and then you can, like you said, knock all those dominoes down.
Yeah.
And start with I would say because for those of us that have like been on this health journey for a while, right? There's so much information, and a lot of it's BS, or some of it's like half truths. So I would just say that keep it simple. When we were talking about just those initial 3 steps, you're winning more of the battle than you think by just reducing your eating window. That, like Cesar just said right now, start there, right? And then if you're not into the weight training, although I highly recommend you get into that because that has so many great health benefits. You're going to live longer. Your ability to overcome injury, all those types of things, boosted immune system. But let's just say that's not your thing. You're not willing to address that yet. Then walking after the meals. I think those 2 things to start with are really going to tip things in your favor. And once you start nailing a few of those dominoes down, you start looking more, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how can I feel better? How can I feel mo better than I feel right now?
Oh, it's so funny that you brought that up.
It's funny.
Speaking of mo better.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of.
Jeez. Come on, Jake. Come on. These guys are good friends with Mo Betta, the owner, the guy that owns that. You guys ever eat their tech, Mo Betta?
Yeah.
Well, these guys they're good friends with them.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I've demolished some Mo Betta.
I think we all have, right? That's what good food does, is it gives you the ability to just demolish good food.
Yeah.
Well, and Jake, let me add this to what you just said, because what you said is really great. If anybody listening has the ability to go to their doctor to get some lab work done, go ask them for a fasting insulin test. And you may see your doctor be like, well, why? He may question you about it, and that should be your first red flag, right? Like, why do you want a fasting insulin test? Because that's going to give you some insight as to where your insulin is at. And then you can start to make some decisions about how to address the insulin. Now, if you're pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic, you're already chronically insulin resistant, right? But if you know you're not pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic, and you're feeling some of the symptoms that come or that are related to insulin resistance, like you get tired after you eat, or you're constantly craving food, or you're having difficulty sleeping through the night, or you feel like your testosterone's low, or for women, you're dealing with things like PCOS or irregular menstrual cycles, or if you notice that you're getting skin tags around your neck or armpits, or if you got discoloration around your neck or armpits, if you have hit a plateau and you're working out and dieting like crazy and you can't lose weight, or if you have gradually gained weight over the last few years, all of these are signs of insulin resistance that won't show up in your lab work under elevated glucose or a high A1C or elevated cholesterol or elevated blood pressure or elevated triglycerides. You can be like me. You can have all that be perfect and still be insulin resistant, right? So go get your fasting insulin checked. Fasting insulin is distinct and different from glucose or A1C, because a lot of people get those confused. If your doctor absolutely won't do that for you, you should maybe consider getting a different doctor. But get your last lab work, and most times, if you do a yearly physical and you do your lab work, you'll typically have your lipid panel done, which tells you your triglycerides, your LDL, and HDL. And you can take your triglyceride count and divide it by your HDL. And if that number's above 1.5, you are insulin resistant. Okay, because that's a easy tell that you're insulin resistant if your doctor won't do a fasting insulin test. So then you can at least be like, okay, cool. Now that I know that I'm dealing with insulin resistance, and now that I can kind of connect the dots with all these symptoms as to why they're happening, now, everything that we've addressed will start to make sense. And I was like, okay, well, maybe intermittent fasting to deal with this. And then all of a sudden we're starting to knock these dominoes off one by one, because now you know that that's actually in play. Most people, just because they've never been taught or they never know, it's like throwing mud on the wall. I'm gonna try apple cider vinegar in the morning and at night because I was told that that was gonna help me for XYZ reason. Cool. I'm gonna start taking berberine, or I'm gonna start doing this, or I'm gonna start drinking that, or I'm gonna start juicing, or whatever. But until you know that that's actually the thing that's at play, we're just kind of guessing, right? So that would be my recommendation if anybody's listening that you're dealing with some of those symptoms. Well, go find out if you're insulin resistant or not. Go put a name to those symptoms that you've been dealing with, so then you can actually go do something about it.
That's dope. That's huge. You don't hear a lot of people, recommending that to ask their doctors about their fasting insulin. I had no idea until you brought that up the last time we talked. So that's huge information right there, folks. And this whole podcast, we're trying to learn how and try to share information about how to take control of our health, because most of you that are listening to this are entrepreneurs and you're running your own businesses and you want to keep being successful. And your health, if you don't have your health, we don't have our health. We can't really sustain and keep going and blessing other people and providing. So this is all great information. We hope you found a lot of this information useful and beneficial to you. And again, Cesar and Tiave here have shared a bunch of their experience here. Hopefully, we're going to put your guys' description, like how to get in contact with you, in the description of the podcast. And but yeah, that's freaking that's huge. It's a lot of information, right? For first of all, but hopefully you guys grab these little nuggets and this information to hopefully be able to explore more and go down that rabbit hole to look and find more information for yourselves. Without health, we don't have anything. So that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to bring Cesar and Tiave on to talk about these things.
Notice, I'll just say one more thing. Like, look,
yeah,
if it's not for you, I mean, someone that's dealing with this. You have a family member, you have a friend, you have an employee, you have a business partner that is dealing with this. I promise you that you can write down your 5 closest people right now, and they're going to be either dealing with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, overweight, or elevated glucose, elevated insulin, or they're not sleeping at night, or they're dealing with, oh my gosh, they're tired after they eat, or they've been struggling losing weight. So like everybody's dealing with this. That's the truth. So if it's not for you personally, it's for your loved one that you're sitting next to, or that you go to church with, or you walk into the office with, or you go to the family gathering. And I mean, look, I mean, I have one of my business partners out in Hilo was telling me that on the island right now, 80% of the people on the Big Island have glucose levels of over 250.
That's not good.
80% of the island is type 2 diabetic.
Jeez.
Now, I can't tell you where she got that statistic. I'm just saying that that's what she told me because she was at the hospital and that's what they told her. But I mean, it's nuts. I sold final expense insurance on the Big Islands. That's why I lived out there. And every day I would ask people if they took medications, and every day someone would walk out with what now has been dubbed the diabetes cocktail, which is metformin, lisinopril, losartan, atorvastatin, metropolol, or some type of insulin, right? So people are suffering and they don't have to. Type 2 diabetes can be reversed. Insulin resistance can be reversed. Blood pressure can be managed. Cholesterol can be lowered. I mean, and really, I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down about cholesterol, but just at a surface level, helping your LDL stay at a certain range, but having your LDL go up is really what matters. So understanding how that works, helping your triglycerides come down, that's all possible without medication.
If I could add something just real quick, and this is just something that was, I don't want to say specific to me because I realize now that a lot of people struggle with this, but a little bit of something that happened to me was I went to see my doctor because I was gaining weight and couldn't figure out why. And when I went to this particular visit, he looked at me, and the reason that what he told me was, trying to be political and polite, I guess, because of your genetic makeup. And I said, my genetic makeup, what, because I'm Polynesian? Well, yes, because you're Polynesian. This was the reason. Well, because you're Polynesian, you just need to get used to the idea that you're going to be diabetic, you're going to be obese, you're going to be on medications for those things, probably gout and high blood pressure for the rest of your life.
Jeez. Hell, now
and that's what we're being told, right? And that's the day he put me on phentermine. It's an obesity medication. He says, do this first. When you get down, we'll start, regimening you out for other things. But here's the thing, man. I'm glad I had that appointment, because nothing breaks you faster than the person you have your trust in, that you think has your best interest at heart, and for him to tell you that you are just hosed for the rest of your life because of your genetic makeup. It wasn't long after that visit that I got together with Cesar and said, dude, okay, what is this? With all the skepticism in mind. And I went and at the time I was pre-diabetic. He told me I was probably type 2 because the time before my A1C was borderline type 2 at 6.4. I met up with Cesar. We started this thing, and in 60 days, I was no longer pre-diabetic. It was literally that simple. Right? My triglycerides went right. My original one was just over 400. Then it was 297, and then it was 78. 65 days. Right? Like Cesar said, all of this is possible without the pills.
That's what's up. That's huge. Hey, man.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
Real. That's what's up, Tiave. Shoot.
Yeah.
That's what's up. And you know what? And think about this. How many of you listening, how many of your doctors have told you that? They probably told you that same thing. You probably heard a version of that, of your doctor telling you that what they told Tiave just now.
Yeah.
Man.
Instead of telling you that it's possible without it. Because they don't. I have never had a doctor encourage me to go work out and encourage me to do some of these things that will reduce it drastically, going back to the earlier problem. And maybe they don't believe that we would do those things.
Yeah.
And so thus their default is to put us on the pills that pays their bills. But I think the solidarity that we can find in our messaging here is, okay, we're powerful as we combine and we make efforts together. The solidarity of taking back our health, and that we don't need these pills to correct through natural means, through this wonderful gift of a body that we have, and through having just a little discipline and doing a few simple things, we can start tipping the scales back where we don't have to you know, we don't have to be on these meds that have all these other side effects that may be permanent to some of our other organs. I'm all about that. You guys have been such a wealth of knowledge. I don't know if we have anything else, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing. We got to do another one with you guys. Part two will be cholesterol in the brain, maybe, and a few other things. That would be exciting to do.
Man.
Yeah.
Some more with you guys.
Happy to. Love to. Thanks for having us on, man. It's been great.
Yeah. Really,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
100%. Thank you guys for all the wonderful information. We're gonna link the Cesar and Tiave's their social media profile. Actually, why don't you go ahead and tell people how they can find you, Cesar?
Yeah, so TikTok is where I do most of my educating and sharing my journey and talking about just everything we talked about today. And my handle is at Cesar_Contreras Jr. So CESAR_CONTRERASJR.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Likewise, I'm on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram too. But my TikTok handle is at the Great Brown. All 3 words spelled out, no spaces.
And by the way, I'll say something about Tiave's TikTok. He was actually suspended for telling the truth, and he had to start a new account.
Yep.
So
I lost my entire following over time.
He lost thousands and thousands and thousands of followers because he was willing to tell the truth.
Jeez.
Yep.
Messing with that money, man. Messing with their money, bro.
And
Yes,
Big
sir.
Pharma don't like that, man. That's why
I know.
you're up against trillions of dollars there when you start. You got to be crafty with your messaging, you know.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Check it out. It's cool. We love it. Love to have you guys.
Awesome. Anything else, Tech? You have anything else we might have missed, Tech? Cesar, Jake, anybody? Right on. Man,
No, I think it's a wrap.
Yeah, I think it is a wrap. But thank you all for listening. We'll catch you on the next podcast. You guys have a great week. Thank you.